Hello, this is Elisabeth, and welcome back to Root of Ramose, a poetry series in which we observe the mechanics, aesthetics, and meaning of the greatest founding texts of the Western poetic tradition. Today we're continuing our textual analysis of the Epic of Gilgamesh by looking at Tablet 6, which features the conflict involving Ishtar and the Bull of Heaven. In this video, I'll be analyzing the verses involving Ishtar's marriage proposal, the response from Gilgamesh, and then the spiritual implications revolving around the Bull of Heaven. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know down below. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with this poetic analysis of Tablet 6. After the slaying of Humbaba, Gilgamesh returns to Uruk, and this tablet begins with the scene of Gilgamesh cleansing himself of his journey to the cedar forest. He washed his matted hair, he cleaned his equipment, he shook his hair down over his back. Casting aside his dirty gear, he clad himself in clean, wrapped cloaks round him, tied with a sash. Then did Gilgamesh put on his crown. If we look at line 6 and how it's structured, I think we can gain something from it. The text is able to smoothly transition from talking about Gilgamesh into introducing Ishtar. This also provides a hierarchy of attention, that we ought to focus first on Gilgamesh and then on Ishtar. This enables us to take on the same perspective as Ishtar, like we too are focusing our attention on Gilgamesh. In this stanza, Ishtar is begging, and I see this as a false display of asking, and a false display of subservience she's using in order to ingratiate herself with Gilgamesh. Ishtar then continues by sharing everything that Gilgamesh will supposedly gain by marrying her. Let me harness you a chariot of lapis lazuli and gold. Its wheels shall be gold and its horns shall be amber. Driving lions in a team and mules of great size, enter our house amid the sweet scent of cedar. As you enter our house, doorway and footstool shall kiss your feet. Kings, courtiers, and nobles shall kneel before you. Produce of mountain and lowland, they shall bring you as tribute. Your goat shall bear triplets, your ewe shall bear twins, your donkey, when laden, shall outpace any mule, your horse shall gallop at the chariot in glory, no ox shall match yours in the yoke. So from these stanzas, we get a pretty good idea of what Ishtar is offering to Gilgamesh. In this stanza, she is claiming that she will add to his existing luxuries by making his chariot's wheels gold and horns amber. The lion and mules could be seen as representing an addition of strength and power that will be added onto Gilgamesh. The sweet scent of cedar is a reference to the dwelling house of the gods, suggesting that Gilgamesh will be brought high into the domain of divinity, where it says, as you enter our house, doorway and footstool shall kiss your feet. Ishtar is suggesting that even at rest and in idleness, Gilgamesh will have respect and adulation. The sentiment is further expressed by the following two lines, illustrating how kings, courtiers, and nobles will kneel before him and bring him offerings from their land. So he will have not only more respect, but also more wealth. The following stanza talks about his livestock multiplying or being of the best stock. And this is to again illustrate the abundance that Gilgamesh will possess if he marries Ishtar. Really, as far as why this attention is being given to Gilgamesh and what purpose it serves for the narrative, I think it further showcases that the conflict in this epic is propelled and sustained by the 2/3 divine nature of our protagonist. So far in the tablets, we've witnessed how other characters revere, admire, or use Gilgamesh's godlike strength, ambition, and beauty. The scenarios he finds himself in, and the actions he chooses of his own will, is created by the dissonance within his own beingness as both divine and human. As we will see moving forward, Gilgamesh's response to Ishtar's marriage proposal is very stern and authoritative, like that of a god, and yet his exhibited cruelty is a short-sightedness indicative of his limited human perspective. Gilgamesh opened his mouth to speak, saying to the Lady Ishtar, "And if indeed I take you in marriage, body and clothing, whence would come my food and my sustenance? Would you feed me bread that is fit for a god, and pour me ale that is fit for a king?" First and foremost, Gilgamesh is asking what matters most to him, if Ishtar would treat him fully like a god and king. Next, Gilgamesh carries on to explain that he knows of Ishtar's nature. "Who is there would take you in marriage, you a frost that congeals no ice, a louvedour that stays not breeze nor draught, a palace that massacres warriors." We then get a continuation of 6 more different analogies that describe how she destroys those who use her, including lines like a water skin that cuts the hands of its bearer, and a shoe that bites the foot of its owner. For whatever reason, due to Ishtar's nature, her partners are destined to suffer discomfort and pain. Gilgamesh then continues by detailing the experiences of her previous lovers, rooted in a kind of mythology. "Come, let me tell you the tale of your lovers, of his arm, Dumuzi, the lover of your youth, year upon year to lamenting you doomed him. You loved the speckled Allallu Bird, but struck him down and broke his wing. Now he stands in the woods crying my wing. You loved the lion perfect in strength, but for him you dug 7 pits and 7. You loved the horse so famed in battle, but you made his destiny whip, spur, and lash. You made his destiny a 7-league gallop. You made his destiny to drink muddy water, and doomed Silili, his mother, to perpetual weeping." It's interesting that there is a long accruement of these stories of Ishtar's cruelty to what she loves. Ultimately, the takeaway in this section is that Gilgamesh knows that Ishtar offers a false fulfillment, and that he will suffer if he accepts her marriage offer. He's fully aware of what she's capable of, and finally asks, "Must you love me also, and deal with me likewise?" The sentiment of this line is not repeated, and greatly contrasts with the existing form of repetition that occurs before it. So the line acts like a rhetorical endpoint for what Gilgamesh is expressing. It also makes his position in this exchange feel very strong. So if we know that Ishtar is a character who can harm what she loves, how do you think she'll treat someone that she grows to loathe? The goddess Ishtar heard these words. She went up to heaven in a furious rage. Weeping, she went to Anu, her father. Before Antu, her mother, her tears did flow. Again, here is the display of familial relationships between gods, and it reflects the hierarchy of family and demonstrates how problems are solved. "O father, again and again does Gilgamesh scorn me, telling a tale of foulest slander about me and insults too." Anu opened his mouth to speak, saying to the Lady Ishtar, "Ah, but was it not you who provoked King Gilgamesh? So he told a tale of foulest slander about you and insults too." Here there is a back and forth between Ishtar and her parents that seems very human. She then asks for the Bull of Heaven so that she will be able to slay Gilgamesh. And then see what she threatens in the next stanza. Ishtar opened her mouth to speak, saying to her father Anu, "Father, give me, please, the Bull of Heaven, so in his dwelling I may slay Gilgamesh. If you do not give me the Bull of Heaven, I will smash the gates of the netherworld right down to its dwelling. To the world below I shall grant manumission. I shall bring up the dead to consume the living. I shall make the dead outnumber the living. So this here is often accredited as the first ever mention in literature of the undead coming back to life to consume the living. So the first iteration of zombies. This is certainly a strange threat, but it feels completely believable given that we've already learned about Ishtar's character. Considering how devious she has been, it doesn't seem like a stretch to believe that she would go so far as to do something so unnatural. Anu opened his mouth to speak, saying to the Lady Ishtar, "If you want from me the bull of heaven, let the widow of Uruk gather 7 years' chaff, and the farmer of Uruk grow 7 years' hay." This stanza, along with the following lines, helps us to better understand the nature of what the bull of heaven is. It seems that they are talking about famine, and that the bowl of heaven is used as a kind of representation of divine judgment. Anu and An make it a qualification that there must be 7 years' worth of chaff and hay gathered and grown in Uruk, and fate has it that the people of Uruk have already gathered and grown what is needed, and so Ishtar's request for her use of the bowl of heaven is granted. As we will see in the next few stanzas, the coming of the bull of heaven displays a very tangible impact on the land of Uruk, and this corresponds with the spiritual perspective of that era, that disasters and misfortune were the works of divine power. Down came Ishtar, leading it onward. When it stretched the land of Uruk, it dried up the woods, the reed beds, and marshes. Down it went to the river, lowered the level by 7 full cubits. As the bull of heaven snorted, a pit opened up. 100 men of Uruk fell down it. The second time it snorted, a pit opened up. 200 men of Uruk fell down it. The third time it snorted, a pit opened up, and Enkidu fell in as far as his waist. Enkidu sprang up and seized the bull by the horns. In his face the bull spat slaver with the tufts of its tail. So by the mere presence of the bull, the life is being drawn out of the land. There is a heaviness ascribed to the bull, as we see, down it went to the river, lowered the level by 7 full cubits, and then also by the opening up of cavernous pits. And there's also a kind of inversion happening there of the natural order of things. We then see hundreds of men fall down into the pit, and the bull even partially threatens Enkidu. Enkidu opened his mouth to speak, saying to Gilgamesh, his friend, "My friend, we vaunted ourselves in our city. How shall we answer the thronging people? My friend, I have tested the might of the bull, so learning its strength and knowing its purpose. Let me test again the might of the bull. I shall get myself behind the bull of heaven. I will seize it by the tuft of the tail." Enkidu sees the bull as an opportunity for a test of might. Together, Gilgamesh and Enkidu team up to take down the bull of heaven. Again, Enkidu takes an assisting role in the fight so that Gilgamesh is given the killing blow, and by extension, the prestige of victory. After they had slain the bull of heaven, they bore its heart aloft and set it before Shamash. Stepping back, they fell prostrate in the presence of the sun god. Then both of them together sat down. So they offered the bull's heart to Shamash, and it's interesting that they're exhausted by the mere presence of the sun god, so much so that they both must sit to withstand his presence. There is then a back and forth exchange between Ishtar and Enkidu that is absolutely brutal. Ishtar went up to the wall of Uruk the sheepfold, hopping and stamping. She wailed in woe, "Alas, Gilgamesh, who mocked me, has killed the bull of heaven." Enkidu heard these words of Ishtar, and tearing a haunch of the bull, he hurled it towards her. "Had I caught you too, I'd have treated you likewise. I'd have draped your arms in its guts." The fact that Enkidu and Gilgamesh are able to kill the bull of heaven shows that they are mortals capable of fighting against divine powers. However, this time they acted not out of the will of Shamash, but rather by their own will of testing the strength of the bull and stopping the attack on Uruk. The killing of the bull of heaven may be seen as self-defense and that it's justified, but it also represents their pride and the disruption of order that they have created through the imbalances of their own nature. This open display of their hostility towards Ishtar really is quite shocking, in that it does provide a sense of turmoil that will inevitably continue to follow them and lead them to their downfall. Ishtar assembled the courtesans, prostitutes, and harlots over the bull of heaven's haunch and began the rites of mourning. Gilgamesh summoned all the smiths and the craftsmen. The size of the horns the craftsmen admired. This stanza is so interesting to me because it so obviously shows a deep dichotomy amongst men and women. While the women concern themselves with the spiritual rites of an ephemeral nature, we see the men with Gilgamesh being captivated by a material object. However, in the next stanza, the men do carry on with a physical ritual leading to a spiritual practice. Yet I think the purpose of this stanza is to demonstrate that the nature of women is inherently less physical than that of a man, and so their plane of existence resides in closer communion with deities and divinity. This is an idea that has been presented before in this epic, and can be found outside of this particular text in innumerable places. I think philosophically, this is an idea that has captivated countless artists and great thinkers over the centuries. This is a frame of thought that has given rise to the notion of the female muse, and how pure beauty is a material representation of transcendence and divinity. 30 minas of lapis lazuli in a solid block, 2 minas, each their rims, 6 core of oil, the capacity of both. He gave them to the god of Lugalbanda to hold oil for anointment. He took them in to hang in his chamber. They washed their hands in the river Euphrates, took each other by the hand, and in they came. As they drove along the streets of Uruk, the people were gathered to gaze on them. Gilgamesh spoke a word to the serving girls of his palace. Who is the finest among men? Who the most glorious of fellows? Gilgamesh is the finest among men. Gilgamesh the most glorious of fellows. So while the women are mourning, Gilgamesh is pridefully bantering with the serving girls of his palace for no reason other than to stroke his own ego. His boasting here seems so over the top that it truly does demonstrate how high-minded Gilgamesh is, and that he has zero awareness or concern regarding the curse Humbaba spoke before his murder, and how it will affect both him and Enkidu. And speaking of that bad things brewing just around the corner, the tablet does end with a stanza that's kind of a cliffhanger. At night the men lay asleep on their beds, and Enkidu, as he slept, was having a dream. Enkidu rose to relate the dream, saying to his friend. So yes, this is a cliffhanger, and the next time we'll see what is to befall Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And that's all for now. Thank you everyone that has taken an interest in this series and continues to take an interest. Yeah, until next time. Bye guys.